Hello, hello, hello. FIFA Club World Cup podcast coming at you. Episode 18, I believe it is. Wow. And of course, as always, just quick introductions. We have myself, Gary Striker, the Hooligan, who is jacked up from the Women's Euros by the sounds of it as well as watching, of course, the Club World Cup with his PSG flag in the background and his Dutch shirt. And of course, an old friend of the show, Devin, one half of the Soccer Sharps, a soccer betting podcast, obviously bringing the money lines and the action and the ways to make money. Gentlemen, good afternoon. I am here in Manhattan. I have just got back from the MetLife Stadium, having watched the Real PSG evisceration. I think is an acceptable way to maybe consider it. I don't know if that's maybe that's too polite.
No, that is about as good a word to describe what happened there in that 90 minutes as anything I've ever heard.
Indeed. Wonderful. Well, before we get into it quickly, of course, hooligan-soccer.com. Follow, like, subscribe, go and check us out, all the rest of it. Devin will give you the shout outs as well, shortly as well, but we know it's the Soccer Sharps. You guys, obviously, friends of the show, people have been listening, and all of those thousands of listeners that we've been consuming should know by now where to get you. Guys, let's get into this. From TV, how the hell did that game look? Because from my side, it was, well, I'll tell you my experience shortly, but tell me how the game was from your end.
Devin, take the lead on this.
Sure. Yeah. For me, it was domination. You know, it was interesting looking at the lineups coming into the match. We saw Dembele making his first start of the tournament for PSG. I thought that was big. Obviously, there were some red card changes from the back lines for both of these teams. Dean Huijsen wasn't in the starting lineup. Instead, it was Asensio. And no Trent either, who apparently picked up an injury with excellent timing because he would not have wanted to be out there for this.
He would not have made a damn difference in this game, would he? Right?
No. No. I mean, it was just domination.
Yeah. No, and Devin, great point that because the Huijsen and Asensio switch, absolutely, and the Dembele switch, those were two things that absolutely flipped this game on its ass, in my opinion. Dembele was an absolute firecracker out there. I mean, in the first the first 12 minutes of the game, he had a goal and 2 assists, and one of the assists was to himself. So, I mean, I mean, he single-handedly gave them a 2-goal lead, essentially. And if the first goal hadn't gone in, he was going to get a penalty because Courtois absolutely took him down. And the referee was like, wait, there it is. Okay, don't have to blow the whistle. I mean,
Courtois made a couple of nice saves.
And both of those occasions came by him picking the pocket of Asensio. So, yeah, big changes had big impacts.
Tournament football.
And I don't totally blame Asensio. I mean, obviously, like the errors that were clear errors are his fault, and he was taken off the ball and gave up goals. But the midfield for PSG, and we've seen this all year, we've seen it through the Champions League and this tournament as well, is just so dominant. They're so good on the ball, so technically sound, so understanding of one another in the way that they pop up in different places. They're just so difficult to defend. You know, PSG, I always look at this from the gambling perspective. We're only a quarter of a goal favorites here. And it was actually very close to just a you pick 'em in this one. And I guess that makes sense for how Madrid have come through the tournament. They looked really good under Xabi Alonso. And it's almost like PSG knew it and wanted to send a message early on. A couple of great saves from Courtois. This thing could have been way out of hand even earlier than it was already. You know, 2 goals in the first 10 minutes.
And I have to correct myself. The second goal, he did not pick Asensio's pocket. That was Rudiger.
It was Rudiger who slipped as well.
Rudiger. And so, I mean, not that it makes it any better. I mean, Rudiger is a world-class defender, and he looked like a U16, gold level amateur going up against. Who knows? Just much pressure out there, and PSG, they were just pummeling Real the whole game.
Yeah. So can I ask from the TV perspective? So where my seats were, I was right behind the dugouts. Okay, I had really great seats today, and it just seemed from the vantage point, and again, as we've discussed before, Cooligan as well, isn't it? When you're at the game, it's different to how you see it on TV. You just sort of see it. It seemed like PSG had made the pitch very small and compact. They were everywhere. And what I mean by that, and then on top of that, Real Madrid just did not seem to be up for it. They just gave too much time for PSG on the ball. They were not pressing. I know Mbappe, we've talked about this. It seems they sign players who don't like to press, Mbappe and Alexander-Arnold, or El Trento as he's going nowadays. But they just did not seem up for it. I don't think it was just some lethargic. They were just lethargic because of the weather or just the occasion. But they did not look up for it, I have to say. It really did sort of look like PSG were all over them, and they weren't even in it. And I think the scoreline reflects that, right?
Yeah, there's some truth to that. Dev, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how you can't be up for it, right? You're going up against the Champions League winners in a stadium that, at least from the TV, looked like it was 90% Madrid fans.
Easy.
I mean, it looked very heavily in their favor. So
there was a small cohort of PSG ultras in the background who, actually, I have to say, give it to them. Their chants were actually very entertaining and very good. Although, so I understand, they were actually, the PSG fans were very good. But I understand, obviously, the game was delayed by 10 minutes because apparently, I mean, the traffic was an absolute nightmare. It took me 2.5 hours to get from Manhattan to New Jersey. I got there after 25 minutes. And then I left 5 minutes before the end to get ahead of it. So this is the first time I've been to a game, and I went to a 4-0 game and I saw none of the goals. It was absolutely shocking. It was disaster. Yeah. However, I understand
the team buses were delayed significantly, and that delayed the kickoff. That was the reason behind it.
New York traffic for you.
We could uncork a whole thing about just the planning of this tournament, the game kickoffs. What are we doing at a 3 p.m. local time and an
TV
outdoor
rights,
stadium? Are you kidding me?
They want to include Europe. They want to include Europe as well. They're trying to do it. But again, just remember, guys, that this is a precursor to the World Cup next year as well. So there will be learns from this, and they will figure it out. Again, logistics, communications, all of these kind of things as well. So yeah,
I hope so.
Can I just say one thing? If there's one thing that I have learned about FIFA, it's that they don't learn.
They don't.
No, they don't. They don't learn because they're FIFA, and they know.
You guys,
Full stop.
all of us.
They don't even finish their sentences. They just
we don't have to
drop subjects and verbs and then leave it hanging.
We will keep coming back for it, and like absolute acolytes, we will come back and keep following it as well, right? So
yeah, it's true. Yeah. I mean, people keep showing up, we keep watching. So
right,
77,000 there today. What was interesting, as you say, 90% Madristas, and you could see like there was a moment sort of halfway through the first half. PSG were just all over them. Madrid were not running, and just the whistling started. They were all whistling and howling and just saying, guys, you need to wake up and you need to get on it. And it really just was there. What was interesting from my perspective, I was trying to sort of analyze PSG and why and how they have become so dominant literally in the last 2 years because of the way it is. And I think I've cracked this. First of all of their players are fit. You can see they are lean, they are chisels. You can just see there's not an ounce of body fat on them as well. And I'm not saying Madrid players are not unfit, but you can see Luis Enrique certainly puts an emphasis on fitness. But what was really interesting is whenever they had possession, all of their players were back and they defended like a big compact block in numbers. But then whenever Real Madrid had possession in their box, they'd have a really high press and would have all of their players all over them as well. So it's Luis Enrique's tactics have basically just got them where they are everywhere, and they're very hard to play against. And then not only that, do they have 3 incredible attacking forwards, 2 of the best possible wing backs as well in Hakimi. He is fantastic. In that central midfield, Vitinha he is just so elegant, so graceful, just gliding through it. And then of course Cooligan, and Kvaratskhelia as well. He was on sort of our side, and he did one wonderful run and just weaved into us. It was elegant. It really was. They are such an incredible team. They really are.
Vitinha had 100 touches.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, for a player to have 100 touches, and this is the 4th game where he's had more than 100 touches. The only game where he didn't was I think one of their early group stage games. I mean, even by professional standards and by even a central holding midfielder standards, that is a lot.
That is dictating the game, right?
That is dictating the game. Of the top 10 players in the first half with touches, they were all PSG players.
Yeah.
And so you look at stats like that and you And then Real, I don't want to cast a lot of aspersions on their substitution strategy, but it's like they took off all their youth and then they put on all their old guys.
Well, they took off.
Maybe hey, listen, I slacked you, Gary, and I said, Modric is on. It's got to be, he's got to score. You got to give Luka a goal on his way out, right? I mean, apparently fate had different plans.
Fate did have different plans. What was interesting is I looked at that when those substitutions came on, and I think they took off Vinicius, they took off Bellingham, and then I think Modric came on, and Barima Bramo came on.
They brought on Carvajal, for Christ's sake.
Well, Carvajal, I mean, to be fair, like 18 months ago, he was at the top of his game.
It took him 2 minutes to get a yellow card.
Get a yellow card as well. I just remember looking at those substitutions thinking, that doesn't inspire me with confidence. These guys are not going to turn the game around and sort of turn it on its head. But then if you look at PSG and their bench, and all of a sudden they brought on Barcola, and then they brought on Zaire Emery, and they're bringing on all these other players. And it's like, these guys are energetic. They are at it. And Luis Enrique is just firing these cannons, cannons into them. One player that really impressed me, and has impressed me this whole tournament, is Doué. And what I didn't realize, and I got to see him up close, is he is massive. He is such a beast. I did not realize this. So really elegant touch, but he is big and he is very, very strong. I got to see him up very close. And yeah, I have to say, I'm really impressed with PSG. That was my first PSG game, and they were absolutely fantastic. And yeah, they are.
All right. So I got to ask you, Chelsea guy, do you have a chance against that?
PSG needs to have an off day, and Chelsea needs to be on it and at it, and then maybe they'll have a chance. But realistically, I think we've discussed this with Manu from the Gig and Pressing podcast on the last episode. Is PSG are the favourites, and if you're going to win this tournament, you have to go through PSG, and they will be waiting, and they will comfortably. I mean, they have just dismantled every single competitive team. I mean, just think of what they did to Inter Milan in the Champions League final, how they just ran through them as well. So you've got to give a lot of credit to Luis Enrique's tactics and just the way he sort of built that team as a unit, and the way they defend at the back compactly, and then they defend with a high press as well. And I think Hooligan, you and I were slacking and messaging as well, right? Which is as I was running into the stadium and obviously watching it because I missed the first 20 minutes, there were two lines that I heard the commentators say, which is, one is Hakimi's going on the underlap, and I understand an underlap, but I was like, that's the first time I've heard a commentator say that.
Oh yeah.
And then they also used the term a reverse press, and I was like, what the hell is a reverse press? And I was like, Luis Enrique is creating new tactics and sort of strategies here as well. If you have a reverse press,
I actually asked a couple of people who I know who play the game at a very competitive level. And the underlap is a real thing, right? They're like,
cut inside rather than going outside.
The underlap is the opposite of an overlap. It's when you invert the run to go to the inside of the player as opposed to the outside of the player, and that's a legit thing. Reverse press got a bunch of question marks. They're like, there's a press, and a press is a press. He goes, the only thing I can think of is that a reverse press is a team that does not have the possession, is in the defensive half, and while they are doing the defensive, right, well, they're practicing their normal defensive moves of either initiating the low block or attempting to delay, also have either a secondary player or some other action that doesn't mean they're purely giving up ground, but they're also attempting to force the offensive team into an error that then gives them the ball. That's the only thing they could think of. But they're like, no, and these are, smart players who are really savvy. They'd never heard of that concept, but they were like, okay, that's what they logically think of.
What you can think of, yeah. There we go.
Makes sense there. I mean, a couple points, just that things you guys talked about. There's that famous clip, and I'm sure it'll be talked about even more after this game, of Luis Enrique talking to Mbappe that he has to press. You have to grab them by the balls and you have to defend. Well, Dembele is that guy, right?
Yes.
If he got the same talking to, he took it to heart, and he is a madman. He presses harder than he plays when he has the ball at his feet. He's so impressive to me. He's probably a Ballon d'Or winner, assuming they win this tournament. I would think.
Yeah.
At least definitely a nominee.
If he has a game like today against Chelsea, I think it would be very difficult to overlook 35 goals. Just the intensity with which he plays. Yeah. It would be very, very difficult. And it would be very difficult for anybody to sit there and legitimately say, Well, I really think we should give it to a Real Madrid player.
Right.
Oh,
That's a great
I don't
point.
think so.
And then the
No,
other
no.
thing you touched on there, Gary, is just like the fitness of the players that you notice watching them. This team has been remarkably healthy for a long time. They haven't had any major injuries. Look, knock on wood, I don't want anything to happen to anyone, but it's just if it's always going to be this 11, they're just so dominant. Jordan and I on our podcast, the Soccer Sharps Soccer Betting Podcast, check it out. We got into an argument because we were trying to decide. We did it for Bayern Munich, but we could do it for this game as well. Is there any players on Madrid that you put into this lineup in a combined 11?
I mean, no. I mean, Mbappe is no. I mean, maybe
Mbappe is a great one because we know it's no because they've been better since he left.
My only argument would be Gonzalo Garcia, just on the basis of the last 5 games that he played, and he did not have a great game today. But
how does he get through?
He had
Paris'
no service.
Thing?
He never had the ball. Right? If you don't have the ball, you can't have a good game. And there was no way for him to ever have an impact because he's just dangling out there on I think he plays on the left side. He's dangling out there on the left side without any service.
But even on the left side, he doesn't get through. It doesn't get through Kavicha. He doesn't get through Doué. He doesn't get through Barcola. He doesn't get through Zaire Emery as well. Those guys, yeah, they PSG have really turned themselves around, and it's a fair point, Devin, that you make, and it is true. But yeah, I think
they'll
just
be
the way
good for
Luis
a very
Enriquez,
long time. I mean, a very long time, and that's the scary part.
Yeah.
PSG played. This was their 64th game since August of last year. This was Real Madrid's 65th game. Only one of those teams looked like they had been playing 64 games, and that was Real. They were the only team that looked tired. I mean, you would never have guessed that PSG had been on an onslaught of a game and a half per week for 11 months.
Well, this is the thing too, though, is at least Real Madrid was pushing for something in their domestic league. PSG had it wrapped up by April.
Well, this is true.
Now there's only 18 teams in Ligue 1, and it's going to keep happening. They're relegating competitors like Lyonnais. I mean, it's hard for me to see this, assuming health, not happening again the same way next season.
Yeah, they really were. They really are impressive, and they really are set up well. And it does look like getting rid of Mbappe was probably the best thing for them. It really was. I know they were very unhappy about it, but him leaving, and you could see just Mbappe. And it's interesting. Madrid have gone for these Galacticos, and they've got 2 players now that are notorious for not pressing, in Trent and Kylian and Mbappe as well. And so they need to change their philosophy.
They'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. I think this is they had to do a tough rotation due to suspensions for a team with a new coach that's still figuring it out. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah. But how good was Marquinhos, right? So he had to step in for Pacho, right? Who had been the key.
Beraldo stepped in for Pacho.
Oh, was it Beraldo who stepped in? Marquinhos is
Marquinhos is the captain. He's the captain. He starts. Yeah.
See, this is what. Damn it, Gary! Can we have Devin on all the time because he's constantly better prepared than I am, and is not shy on correcting me. And I love
that. Put some money on the games. You'll be very prepared. Yeah.
Devin and I should start our own show, maybe. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's right. Putting your money away about this.
Point. But but that was the thing. They did not lose any fidelity on their defensive line by the suspension of by that suspension. And I think that's a good sign that your club has depth.
They absolutely do. And again, this is the other thing with tournament soccer as well, tournament football as well, is the suspensions are the things that really do hurt you. It's not the injuries, it's the stupid yellow cards that you pick up, and then the suspensions that really do hurt you. And obviously that's really sort of come to fruition here on a couple of teams. Okay, so gentlemen, that brings obviously that wonderful game, obviously that PSG Real game, which was one for the ages and absolutely special. And then if we can just shift our focus and attention to yesterday's other semi-final, the Chelsea Fluminense game.
Way back machine.
Yeah, I know it seems like an age ago as well. And I was again also fortunate enough to be at this one, as you can tell. I haven't been in New York to really sort of overdose on sort of live soccer matches. Devin, I'll let you take this one. Did you have Chelsea in this one? Did you make any money? How did you fare on this one?
We did, yes. We had Chelsea to win the game and to have the most corners in the match. because
Really?
we assumed
you went for a corner play. Wow.
Well, because Chelsea were such big favorites, you had to add something on there to make it to make the money work or the price work. But you know, I was rooting hard for Fluminense because one thing I've learned about this tournament is that there are a lot of different ways to play this game, and a lot of the European teams are very homogenous in the way they play. Unless you're a far lower quality team and you just have to sit in a low block, right? We see that in the Premier League on weekends. But generally, when you look at PSG versus Bayern, say, it's very clear they both want to dominate possession, press in the opponent's half. It's a very similar way of playing. And I watch these Brazilian teams and they don't do it like that. They just don't have positional play. They don't have positional like principles. Maybe they do. I'm just not seeing them. But it's very much like, instead of, I should stay out on the wing, Pep Guardiola style, Jack Grealish, stay out there on the left wing and you're just creating space. Like, don't do anything actually, because the best thing you can do is just leave space for people to come inside. It's very much the opposite in Brazil, where guys are running toward one another with the ball and then creating these really nice interchanges and interplay. And it looks so different to me that I just wanted to see more of it. And I feel robbed almost that I'm seeing this sort of homogenous play style. And maybe that's the most efficient way to play. And that's what these teams have discovered. And that's why everyone does it. But so all that to be said, just that I was rooting hard for Fluminense. I thought they accounted themselves better than Real did today. I'll say that. But, I don't want to go to the refs. But the handball in the box, this was a big talking point. I started getting angry.
We had quite an exchange on that one.
Yeah, I was so upset. I'm so upset because,
tell.
And I'll just give me 10 seconds on this.
No, vent, please. This is your platform.
So the ball gets flicked on into the box. Chalobah's moving. He's presumably trying to get his hand out of the way, but it still hits the ball, and it takes the ball away from the player behind him, I think was Thiago Silva. So he's affected the play materially. And you say, well, it's a subjective call. Well, the referee on the field called it a penalty. And then the VAR has the nerve to come in and say, actually, your subjectivity is wrong. I'm right. Come look at this. And he looks at it and he goes, well, I guess this guy must be right. He's got the angles, and he overturns it. And I'm okay with it not being a penalty, but it's the inconsistency that just drives me mad, because I don't understand what I'm watching now. This is a different tournament. People may not care about this, but the Gold Cup final, Mexico, USA, a guy falls, puts his hand onto the ball, rolls it away, and then keeps dribbling. Oh, it's not a handball. It was accidental that he fell on the ball. Well, he touched the fucking ball in the box, and it removed it from other people being able to touch it. That's a handball. That's a penalty. I don't know what I'm watching now, so maybe that's better because there's more drama, because I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. But it's infuriating as someone who wants to understand and have consistency. I don't know. Am I crazy?
Apparently.
Yeah, you're crazy,
so.
but I don't think not on this one. No, but I mean, are you crazy? Yes. But no, listen, your point, your point is logically sound. It is accurate, and I mean that in the sense that I listen to a lot of people complain about referees who are coming at it from a perspective of somebody who wants a particular call to go their team's way. You're not in that particular scenario here. And your point about the fact that the referee made the call and then the VAR intervened to have the call then removed is perhaps the most persuasive argument that you can make towards the fact that it should have been a penalty. Because if it was indeed a subjective call, shouldn't the referee's subjectivity, and he chose to grant the penalty, have a greater bearing on it than the VAR's perspective and the ability to go back and disassociate and look at everything in a freeze frame? Yeah. When you talk like that, Devin, you convince even me, and I was the one who was on our Slack channel arguing the opposite side. And no, you're not crazy. And unfortunately, as with every handling call that comes, goes, gets called, does not get called, there's always controversy. It is the one element of the laws of the game that is always inconsistent and always subject to these types of subjectivity rulings. I mean, offsides at the end of the day is really Boolean. You are or you're not. And with the new technologies now, I mean, it's pretty easy to get that right. Handballs just aren't like that. So
yeah, it's
listen, you're spot on. And I agree. I was the same way. I feel the same way that you did. I was rooting for Fluminense myself. I really wanted to see a Brazil versus, I wanted to see a CONMEBOL UEFA final. But Chelsea were good. This is probably one of the best Chelsea matches that I had seen so far. They also were cynical as hell. Chelsea used the tactical foul and the referee's own reticence to yellow card early, right, to allow them to completely take any, like Fluminense had no attempt and no real chance to make any type of cognate attack, because every time they'd go and possess the ball, somebody from Chelsea would come and pull a jersey, knock them off the ball, hit them this, hit them that way. I mean, it was a somewhat cynical yet effective way to play the game, and does a very good job of disrupting teams like Fluminense that rely on flow and rely on that possession and that interplay, and that when you don't have that, it's very difficult without positional discipline to build any sort of solid attack.
Yeah. Credit to Chelsea. I'm not trying to take anything away from them here.
No, of course not. They won legit. Yeah,
they did
well,
dominate
legit.
that,
if it can be legit that they just brought in a player from Brighton, what was it, 2 games ago, who scored both their goals?
Oh,
so that's
we
cool.
want to talk about João Pedro.
So Pedro, yeah, I mean, feel bad for the
All
guy.
right.
He didn't get to celebrate, but classy of him, I guess.
No,
This team he played like 6 games for.
Yeah. Well, that was a FIFA thing, right? So they brought him in the secondary transfer window that the Club World Cup allowed. So there was an initial transfer window that allowed for teams to trade players before the start of the group game. But then there was a secondary window that went from the 30th of June through the 3rd of July, which allowed them to make any secondary changes. And it was in that second window that they were able to pull in João Pedro, who apparently was on his break in Rio and waiting to find out what was going to happen, and got the call and jumped on a plane. And then, and of course, there's the big irony that João Pedro, of course, was a Fluminense academy kid, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's why he didn't celebrate. Like you said, it's a classy move. He went, he scored, acknowledged, did not go excessively. But I mean, I always liked João Pedro as a Brighton guy. I thought he was phenomenal. And when you look at what he did in that game, you realize, oh my goodness, what a very promising path lies ahead of him inside this Chelsea universe. And what a strange series of events that led to him even starting, right? With Nicholas Jackson getting that red card, with then Delap getting a yellow card for being a mouthy bastard. And then all of a sudden, Pedro gets to start, bam, 2 goals. You think that Jackson has any future at this club? Let's ask Gary, who just came back on.
Technical issues. Thank you for covering, guys. Nope. Yes. I mean, there's a couple of things. No. So yeah, first of all, João Pedro, I mean, I have a new man crush. It's no longer Xabi Alonso, it's João Pedro. I mean, both of those goals, he just looked completely effective in front of goal, which was absolutely wonderful. The Nicholas Jackson situation is, if you think about it, he has now relegated himself to being a fourth choice striker, right? You have João Pedro, who's probably up there with Delap. Nkunku is ahead of him, and then Jackson now comes in at fourth. And you can see that in Maresca's decision-making, how he's not been starting him. And I think the summary, I don't know if there's a clip going on. Of course, my algorithm shows me all the Chelsea stuff in my social feeds. There was a clip where Jackson is going through on goal. Cole Palmer is in the middle of the goal, and all he has to do is square the ball and puts it in, and Palmer gets it. Of course, Jackson being Jackson takes a shot, he misses, and Cole Palmer goes absolutely nuts. He starts kicking the post, and you can see he's like, Cole Palmer's normally pretty chilled and pretty sort of like Mancunian, you know what, so what? And he was screaming at Jackson, and you could just see that the tipping point has got to the point where, and again, I know there's a bit of a debate online, but this guy, I think he's basically sort of, it seems, here's my suspicion, Arsenal will probably pick him up as well, because this is what Arsenal tend to do, is just go and pick up Chelsea's rejects and leftovers as well. So I think he's put himself at fourth place striker, and I think he gets rotated out. He's shown he's not the one. João Pedro has come in on his debut to absolute bangers, and I think it's got to the stage where it's exciting. Pedro Neto looked very good as well. I have to say, Pedro Neto has really sort of filled into those positions. And yeah, it was a very convincing display. So it brings us to the interesting lineup on Sunday. PSG against Chelsea. Devin, how's the money line looking?
Gary, I have a professional question for Devin.
For me,
is there a betting line on a team getting a foul throw called? Because Chelsea got a foul throw in the 81st minute. They were called for a foul throw in, which is something that you just do not see at this level.
Yeah, that's surprising. I'm not that much of a sicko. I haven't completely delved into
fair.
all of that.
That's fair.
But I'll be honest, if it can happen in a game, you can probably bet on it.
You could probably bet on it. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Spot betting, ladies and gentlemen. But that's probably the ultimate spot bet right there.
As you were saying, so I'll give you guys some numbers for the finals here.
All right, here we go. Yes, for the finals. Talk to us.
So to lift the trophy, so, normally in soccer betting, you bet for the 90 minutes, even if there is possibility of extra time. But so beyond that, to lift the trophy, PSG, big favorites, and they've even been getting more money on them since we started this call, since I've been looking at the numbers here. Chelsea, more than 2-1 underdogs here, so plus 240 to win it. PSG minus 330. Pretty heavy favorites. I think in terms of the goal line for 90 minutes, PSG are 1 goal favorites. They'd have to win by 2 clear goals to cash that bet. It's really, I think PSG are going to win, but I don't think that Chelsea are 3/4 of a goal worse than Real Madrid, who were only a quarter goal underdogs. And now you're telling me Chelsea's a full goal underdog. So, that makes me think that line is a little bit fishy. But look, I'm getting into the weeds on gambling stuff. Nobody cares about that. You can check out our show if you want that kind of talk.
Will you be having an episode on this?
We'll be going live.
Good. Pay attention to that, ladies and gentlemen.
We'll be going live tomorrow, talking about this one.
Nice.
Excellent round, by the way. I think we went 3-1 for our 4 bets there.
Aren't you overall for this tournament? Aren't you sort of like 6 times your money up as well in terms of the units? Is that correct? Last time I spoke to you, how's that been holding out? Or was it 3 times you were 3 times up, I believe, Devin? Is that correct?
Yeah, we've gone down a little bit from that. I think I can hear you, Gary. You're sort of breaking up there, but I think what you're saying is, yes, we are in the profit for the tournament as a whole. And I'll be looking forward to taking my 3-week break before we got to come back and start talking about Europe. But yeah, so it's been fun. It's been really good tournament for us.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, and then any other crazy bets as well? Because it does feel like.
What do you guys think?
I can tell you this. This will not shock. This will not shock Gary, because I will take any opportunity to bet against Chelsea. I think PSG. I said that PSG was going to win it. A few games ago. I still think PSG is going to win it, but I agree. I think it's going to be a much closer game than this Real Madrid was. Chelsea they're just not going to go down like that. There's too much fight inside the Chelsea players and inside the Chelsea soul to allow that. Yeah, we'll wait for Gary to come back on so that we can get his thoughts. I think he'll try to make some kind of. Here's my prediction about what Gary will say. He'll make some sort of bold statement about Chelsea possibly winning this one. Perfect timing. I was just saying that you were going to say that Chelsea's winning. Is this true?
Chelsea can win it, and if they do, it'll be very tight and probably in extra time and penalties. But my sense here is PSG are going to steamroll them. And again, like they have comfortably gone through 4-0. 4-0. I think it's probably going to be sort of like a good sort of 2-3. Look at what they've done to Inter Milan. Look at what they've done to Real Madrid. I'm fearful for this one. I really am fearful. I'm not saying they can't do it. Again, Chelsea are going to have to show up and over deliver. PSG need to have an off day, and I think Devin, sort of, if you're saying that money line is what plus a goal or plus 3/4, as you say, I think that's probably a good bet because it's going to be a good sort of 2-3 goal difference at the very least. I think here realistically.
Wow, he's a lot more pessimistic than I am, but okay.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Hard not to be. I mean, PSG. Here's the question for you, Gary, or for both of you guys: will Chelsea score? That's my question. PSG have given up one singular goal this entire tournament, and it was to Botafogo, their one loss. Can Chelsea get on the score sheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely I think not only can they, I think they will.
I would have said Madrid would have too, but or Bayern for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it all depends on what happens
playing
in
up
the
front
first 10
gives
minutes.
you a chance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, if PSG have an opening 10 minutes like they did today, no, Chelsea are done. They're cooked. But no,
but I also think Chelsea won't be as naive as Madrid was today, right? No. They're going to understand. They're going to watch today's game and I think be willing to defend a lot deeper and harder than I think Madrid were willing to.
And I just think there are more. I just think they're a cannier group of players. There are more scrappers inside the Chelsea locker room than there are in Real.
That's a good point.
I mean, no, they're more there's more fighters in there, less technicians, more fighters. So, I really think
wonderful.
Should we do score predictions? What do you guys think?
Well, I'm not going there.
No,
but honestly, I'm thinking it's 2-1 PSG.
3-1 PSG. 3-1 PSG as well. I think 3-1 PSG. Dembele and Doué and Kavicha each get on the score sheet, and then João Pedro gets one.
Oh, he's dropping names. Look at him.
Yeah, wow, goal scorers. There's a market for that you can bet on, Gary.
Hey, did you just out of curiosity? Well.
Yeah, and that's...
I would hit the trifecta. And just out of curiosity, Devin, just while we're sort of getting to the end of this tournament as well, I don't know if you've been following our show, but the Cooligan made the call of the tournament where he claimed that Al Hilal would beat Real Madrid. Was that the call? Was it?
No.
City.
Man City. Sorry, yeah. You called it. You called it. I laughed at you. I laughed at you out on the call.
Many people laughed at me.
Many people laughed at you as well. Yeah,
I laughed. I was laughing. I was shocked. That was a crazy... Yeah, we lost quite a bit on that one. It was not a good match for us. No. But I was happy to see it. I like the diversity of play styles, even though I'd say the Saudi league, Simone Inzaghi is pretty much just a Euro team, but at least there's something different there. So I was happy to see that. Although it would have been more fun to see PSG Man City or Chelsea Man City last round, I suppose would have been the match.
I like the diversity
that would
from
have
the
actually
other
been
things.
A little goal, for my opinion. But
you're right. We've seen that. We're going to see that.
Right? We're going to see that twice next year, maybe even 3. Who knows?
Exactly, so I'm going to go 2-0. 2-0 PSG.
2?
Right on.
Okay.
I like it.
Wow.
Okay.
2-0.
Chelsea would have done well.
Tidy.
Okay.
Easy.
Wonderful. Well, Devin, thank you very much as always for joining us.
Thank you.
The Soccer Shops, the Soccer Shops, the Soccer Betting Podcast. Obviously, Google find you across all of the usual platforms and
That's right.
Spotify and all those things. Cooligan, we will be back. I think we'll do a post game on Sunday as well. So we'll probably be back Sunday afternoon to do a sort of a wrap up for the tournament as well. I think that's how it is. And in the meantime, I think you're going to be watching a lot of women's Euros by the sounds of it as well.
Kidding me? Women's Euros are amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of women's Euros, I know you were saying England just lost as well. And
No.
They dominated.
No.
Oh, they dominated.
The Dutch lost. Okay.
The Dutch lost. The Dutch lost. The Dutch lost.
They got their ass kicked to England.
Yeah. So
I mean, it was a beatdown. It was an utter beatdown.
Yeah. So the hotel I'm staying in, the Chelsea team are in the hotel next door. So as I was coming out this morning to go and get coffee, I saw Reece James walking down the streets as well, and Roberto Di Matteo as well, just casually, just with his earphones in, walking through Manhattan as well. So I was thinking,
if you see him, congratulate him that his sister scored 2. Got a brace.
Got a wonder goal as I saw it. I did see that. Wow. Yes, exactly. So that was that connection. So yes, it was
you can rib him about being the second best member of the James family on the pitch.
Imagine that. And then just thinking of families, did you see Joe Bellingham went to go and see his brother today as well? So can you imagine? Yeah, it's wonderful, these stories and these narratives of families being able to go and see their families play as well. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much. Devin, thank you as always for coming on. Always valuable.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Super. All right, guys. Well, as always, like, follow, subscribe, hooligan-soccer.com as well. Go and check out all the musings as well from the Hooligan and myself. And we will be back on Sunday for our last episode of the show. Thank you very much. Take care.
Peace.